Hello, 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 Emery's Crime here, your fellow crime, thriller and mystery book lover. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Seeing as a brand new season of Love Island has just begun, I thought I would do a video where if you're a fan of Love Island, the TV show, I have 9 thriller book recommendations which I think that you will enjoy. If you're not familiar with Love Island, then where have you been? But just in case you haven't seen it, it's a dating show where strangers are paired off into couples. They do all sorts of silly activities, they get to know other people to try and find the person that they really like, and the winning couple at the end wins a cash prize. The thriller book recommendations which I have for you today contain either the reality TV show trope, the influencer trope, or both. And all these books I have given 4 stars to or more. All of these books, they're light, they're easy, they're fun, not too much brain power is required to read them. They'd be perfect to read on a beach or if you're just in the mood for something not too heavy. I'm going to run through them in no particular order, however, I'm going to save the most underrated book, the one I never see people talk about, until the very end. First up, we have People Pleaser by Katrina Stewart. So main character Maggie won a popular dating show which was very similar to Love Island, and she is brutally murdered. The police close the investigation alarmingly quickly, so it is down to Maggie's sister Emma to try and do her own investigation and try and uncover the truth. This encompasses both the reality TV show trope and the influencer trope, so it's kind of got the best of both worlds. Obviously 2024-2025 was very popular when it came to the TV show trope. However, the way that this book was written was quite refreshing. The story mostly follows Emma doing her investigation, but there are short snip scenes where it looks at Maggie's time during the dating show. And I just really liked that format in the writing. I found it quite refreshing that it didn't just focus purely on Maggie's time in the dating show. What did let this book down was I did guess the killer, and I did think it was quite obvious, but overall I thought it was a really easy light read. Next up, following the influencer trend, is The Tradwife's Secret by Leanne Child. Madison March has the perfect life. She showcases her perfect family, her perfect home, her making sourdough bread all over social media. She hires her children a tutor called Callie, who learns very quickly that the life that Madison portrays online is not realistic of what her life actually is. Main character Madison March reminded me of Nara Smith. I don't know if you've seen her videos on TikTok, but this is her. One of my favourite tropes is rich people behaving badly, and I felt that in this story it was very much influencers behaving badly. It was brilliant. I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but it was the equivalent of reading a trashy magazine. It was so addictive, but I mean that in a good way, like trashy, addictive. Sometimes that's just what we need. The characters in this were really unlikable, which sometimes I don't like, but for the purposes of this story, it worked. They were brilliant. They were so entertaining. Next, we have The Ugly Truth by L.C. North. So this is a little different to the other books in this video because this is told in a mixed media style format. And in this story, it follows the disappearance of Melanie, a reality TV star. So not quite an influencer, but basically an influencer. Nobody is as good, in my opinion, at mixed media as Janice Hallett. However, I still thought that this was a brilliant mixed media style book. The main character Melanie kind of reminded me of a cross between Paris Hilton and Britney. Maybe that's just how I interpreted it though, so take that with a pinch of salt. I did find the story a bit slow from time to time, so the mixed media style elements which are scattered within the book really helped to keep the pace up so that you didn't lose interest. It was an enjoyable read, but also I felt like it had something to say. It really made me think after I finished it. Next up is The Golden Spoon by Jessa Maxwell. So this was mine and Michaela's second ever in-person book club pick. And the premise of this is essentially if Bake Off ended up turning into a murder mystery. The writing style of this really reminded me of the kind of books such as The Hunting Party and The Guest List, which Lucy Foley writes. You know that somebody has been murdered, but you don't know who. And in the story, you follow loads of different characters. So while you're reading it, you're trying to work out who's been killed and who did it. I'm not going to lie to you, at book club this didn't go down particularly well. Lots of people weren't a fan of it, but I personally really enjoyed it because I like that style of not only trying to figure out the killer, but trying to figure out who has been killed. I also thought the premise was quite refreshing and unique. I've not ever read a Bake Off style murder mystery before. Next we have One Perfect Couple by Ruth Ware. I would really recommend that you do the audiobook for this. It follows a handful of couples competing in a brand new dating game show. The reality show takes place on an isolated island, and on the first day they are hit with a hurricane. There's limited food, water is scarce, so it ends up being basically a game of survival. I thought the characters in this were written really well. They were really interesting. They were all different. A couple of the characters had similar names, so sometimes I got a bit confused between the two. I thought it was fast-paced and easy to read or listen to in the case of this book. And out of all the books in this video, this is the one I would say would be the perfect beach read, given its isolated island setting. Next we have You'll Never Be Me by Jessie Sultana. This is the first time I've read something by this author, and I definitely want to read more of hers. I didn't realise at the time, but I think that this is the author of Vera Wong's Guide to Unsolicited Murder. Again, this is one which I would recommend that you do an audio, and it follows the influencer trope. Meredith is stalking her best friend Aspen after a huge falling out. Meredith used to be a big time influencer and she helped Aspen get popular, and now Aspen is way bigger than Meredith and Meredith is a little bit jealous. The story started off really petty but in an enjoyable way, but about halfway through it takes a really sinister dark turn, which was brilliant. Some aspects of the story I did find a bit predictable, but I also thought that there was some brilliant twists thrown into the mix. You know, when you just read the perfect book for you at the perfect time? Well, this was certainly the case for this book. It was just what I needed when I read it at the time, if that makes any sense at all. We are now 6 books down and 3 to go. If you have made it this far, then thank you ever so much. I honestly appreciate it so much. If you're not already doing so and would like to hit that subscribe button for crime, thriller, mystery book recommendations, then I would so appreciate it. Also, if you're liking what you're seeing, you can find me on TikTok and on Instagram for a different style of content compared to BookTube. Next we have Isolation Island by Louise Minchin. So you may or may not be aware that I am not a huge fan of celebrity authors, but this was one of the very rare occasions where I actually enjoyed a book by a celebrity. In the UK, there's a reality TV show called I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, where a handful of celebrities spend time in the Australian jungle. They have to do trials to win food and win treats, and it's one of my favourite reality TV shows, and the author Louise Minchin was on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, and that was the inspiration for this book. Because I am a huge fan of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, I felt when reading Isolation Island, I was getting some juicy gossip and some interesting intel as to what it's like behind the scenes. Obviously this book is fiction, so I don't know what's true and what's fictionalized, but still I felt it gave a bit of insight. I found it was written well and it was a real page turner. Next is The Winner by C.J. Parsons, which again was another book which Michaela and I had for book club. Main character Heather is a trainee teacher and she wins a place in the Triple F lottery. This is where fame, fortune and followers await. All you have to do is showcase your lifestyle online and retain over 500,000 followers on social media. And the prize is £5,000 a week for life, providing you meet the criteria of the followers and showcasing your lifestyle. However, it's a little bit suspicious when past winners of the show start becoming victims of various different tragedies. I adored the premise of this. It was something so different and so unique. I often say that sometimes thriller books feel a bit samey, but this was not the case for this book. The book is over 400 pages long and I absolutely flew through it. I ate it up so quickly. It was so easy to read. The story had kind of dystopian vibes, so if you're a fan of John Mars's dystopian thrillers such as The One, The Marriage Act, then you might like this one. And now for my final book, which I never ever see people talk about. It is quite an old book, so maybe that's why people don't talk about it. But just because a book is old doesn't mean it shouldn't be hyped up if it's brilliant. And that book is Dead Famous by Ben Elton. This is the first time I came across a book with the reality TV show trope, and I could be completely mistaken, but I think this is the first book to ever do the reality TV show trope. Please correct me if I'm wrong. The premise of this is essentially Big Brother, but with a murder. I find Ben Elton's books very hit and miss, and this one was a definite hit and it's my favourite of his which I've read so far. I have done a video quite similar to this, but instead of focusing on just one TV show, I focus on a few shows such as Desperate Housewives and The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, so I'll link that video here if you're interested. Also, have you had a chance to check out my latest video? If not, I'll pop it here. Thank you ever so much for taking your time to watch this video. As always, let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you. Bye.